Good afternoon, everybody. This is the Math Professor from the Two Cigars and a Blunt podcast, coming at you on Fridays, 8 Eastern, 7 Central, followed closely by the Ashed Out After Show. And now on Wednesdays, we have a sports show called the Better Than Sex Sports Podcast that comes on Wednesdays, 7 Central, 7 Eastern, 6 Central, excuse me. I act like I've not done this in damn near every single video, but anyway. Um, I want to ask a question of black maggots and Trump supporters. Y'all keep saying what Trump has done for the black community, but you never have an answer to the question, what has Trump done for the black community, especially in comparison to the Biden Harris administration? Um, well, you have answers, but you don't have what I would call subsequent answers or true answers, because you hear Trump always talk about what how he saved HBCUs, um, and what he means is in September of 2019, a Republican from Tennessee whose name escapes me right now. I'm sorry. Um, Decided to forego a bipartisan bill to fund HBCUs for that year, that fiscal year 2019 2020. He later relented and allowed the bill to go ahead and pass. It's amazing that in our system, one person can stop a bill for the entire 330 million people that's in this country. Anyway, um, he decided to go ahead and pass it, and Trump signed it, which restored the $80 million for that fiscal year back to HBCUs. But what's funny is earlier in his term, Trump proposed $100 million cut to HBCU programs. So what did he give us? Nothing. He still took $20 million away. Now, every year of funding that HBCUs received was only secured because activists went to the Trump administration and basically begged. And I mean, every year they almost had to beg for funding for HBCUs because I guess Trump likes the idea of black people coming to him on their knees begging for shit from him. Um, Now, it's funny that the federal money that goes to white institutions is just automatically given. You know, they're afforded the luxury of getting billions and billions and billions in funding every single year, and and not even taking into account the large number of majority white institutions that there are, but the fact that per capita, for every $10 a majority white institution get, HBCU basically gets 50 cents, 25, 50 cents, if I remember the math right. I may be off. I hope somebody can correct me on that one. So the Biden Harris administration since 2021 has given HBCUs $16 billion in funding. Let me say that again, $16 billion in funding over the last 3 years. And in fact, they've also given an additional $900 million to the Department of Education for expansion of HBCU programs that would help them secure corporate funding and corporate sponsorships like majority white institutions. So, who's done more? Then Trump supporters will bring up opportunity zones. Now, here's the funny thing about the way opportunity zones were set up. They were set up to invest in underserved communities, but those investments came with capital gains tax forgiveness. So they became basically havens for investors to guarantee that they would pay no capital gains taxes on the initial sale and get a discount on the tax itself. In fact, if you take those profits from the initial sale of something going on in opportunity zone and hold it for 10 years and put that profit that you made off it into the opportunity zone fund for 10 years, you wouldn't have to pay any capital gains taxes. None. So you basically made money for doing minimal and not having to pay taxes on that. Now the issue begins in what's considered an opportunity zone, because there were no true guidelines onto what included an opportunity zone, where you would get in the areas that it was supposed to set up for, underserved and black communities. You'd get, let's say, $2-3 million, and that was basically all that area would get. So an area maybe the size of East Baltimore would see 10 to 12 million dollars in investment that went to one place or maybe a couple places. Now, $1 million is no money at all to say that that's what the majority of the investments got and investment opportunity zones got, where that's the cost of what was a condo in, say, the Ritz Carlton in Portland, Oregon, which itself was considered an opportunity zone. So again, more tax havens and more opportunity for wealthy people to extend their wealth and to grow their wealth even more. Now, what something else that happened, not something that happened rather last week, late last week, was Donald Trump received an endorsement and support from Robert Kennedy Jr., who for a long time during this election cycle was the darling of right wing media because they felt that he was going to be able to siphon votes from what was then the Biden Harris ticket. He believed in a lot of stuff that most extreme left people believed in, and somehow that meant a lot to right wingers because they felt that that would crush that third party would help crush, because he did run as a he wanted to run as a Democrat, but when he wasn't allowed, he ran as an independent. So he did have a lot of support, but the problem for the right wing and maggots was he got a lot of maggot support. The same people who were Obama Trump voters. He got a lot of support from these folks, which made the way a little bit clearer for the then Biden Harris campaign. So of course they turned on RFK Jr., calling him a lunatic, a leftist, this, that, and everything, and all the other Marxists, socialists, communist names that Dum Dum comes up with for his opponents, and Fox News just piles onto that and adds to it. Late last week, RFK decided to end his bid for president, but the problem is everything that RFK stands for is completely opposed to what Donald Trump stands for. RFK believes in abortion rights as health care and that there should be no federal law preventing it in any state, or no state law even preventing it. Donald Trump, despite what he says, wants a nationwide ban on abortion because he doesn't consider it health care at all. RFK wants more restrictions put on corporations for environmental protection, whereas Donald Trump wants to do away with the EPA altogether. And in fact, late last week, I want to say on the 23rd last week, a judge here in Louisiana decided to end the EPA's Office of External Civil Rights Compliance and Justice Department from enforcing a provision that prevented corporations from purposely setting up petrochemical factories in black areas and poor areas, such as here in Louisiana, what we call Cancer Alley, the space that runs along the Mississippi River, basically from Baton Rouge to New Orleans, or to St. James Parish, I think it is where LaPlace is, if I remember right. I always forget my parishes. I'm sorry. I know people that live here is gonna be highly offended that I don't remember, but it's called Cancer Alley because occurrences of cancer happen at a 70% higher rate in this area, again, poor and black, than any other portion of the country. And along this route does a couple hundred petrochemical factories, including oil refineries, plastic makers, and everything else, and everything like that, where they are allowed to produce some noxious chemicals, and they have barely any oversight rather, what happens once those chemicals are made and the waste byproduct of the making of those chemicals. Again, Donald Trump wants to do away with that, whereas RFK said he's always been opposed to allowing companies to do this. Also, RFK doesn't like giving a lot of money to the military-industrial complex, where, of course, Trump is a warmonger as great as there ever was. So again, I ask you, black Republicans and black maggots, what has Trump done for the black community? Because if you listen to Trump, no president has ever done more for the black community since Abraham Lincoln. But if you look at what Abraham Lincoln did for black people, he didn't do it for black people. He did it for the country, because he's always said if he could have prevented war, released, if he could have prevented the war and kept the country together without releasing slaves, he would have. So he's not the great triumph of the he's not the great savior of the black man that he wants to be. And for all of you Dr. Umar, I'm not gonna call a man a fool, but Dr. Umar followers, do you know who Dr. Umar truly is? I mean, yes, he's educated. He has a doctorate of psychology. I forgot from which organization. I think it's somewhere in Ohio. Um, but he does a whole lot of talking to say he's done a whole lot of nothing. He said he claimed to be a descendant of Frederick Douglass, which DNA records show he's not even close. Um, he wanted to buy, I want to say it was St. Paul's School for Boys in Virginia, if I remember right. Never secured the funding for it, and this has been ongoing since 2014. He's supposed to be opening up a school sometime for this school year. We'll see if that actually happens. He has a lot of opinion about black life in America, but he does a whole lot of nothing about it. He claims that the Harris campaign offered him $10,000 to do an interview with Miss Harris. My thing is, I'd work for Donald Trump and Elon Musk if they paid me. If the check cleared, I'd work for them. I don't have to support them to take their money. Umar, you could have done the same thing. In fact, that could have been the money you used to buy the goddamn school that you've been trying to buy since 2014, to do all the crap you've been talking about since 2014. So don't give me this Pan-African BS of yours, this Hotep BS of yours, saying that you're this, you're that, you're this, you're that, when the only thing you're good at is running your damn mouth and getting clicks. That's it. That's it. You know, I love listening to these Hoteps and these Pan Africans talk about what Kamala Harris hasn't. I almost said Kamala, y'all almost had me. Um, what Kamala Harris hasn't done for black people, when all she's done her whole life is serve a lot of blacks in the community. Her whole life. I mean, is she supposed to just work for black people? Who's supposed to do that? We're supposed to work for all people. Black people, we do need some extra attention. We do. But we're not the only ones who need attention. And I say that begrudgingly, because I've always been black people need more attention than everybody, but we don't. If we're left to our own devices, honestly, we've already shown that we can do great things. Memphis, neighborhoods in Memphis that were bombed by whites. Um, Rosewood, that was bombed by whites. Rosewood, Florida, that was bombed by whites. Black Wall Street, that was bombed by whites, rebuilt and then taken back over by whites. We've shown what we can do if we're given an opportunity. All we need is that opportunity. Don't listen to these people. In fact, don't even listen to the people that tell you vote Harris Walls. Look up the records of the two people of all the people we're talking about, and see who's actually meant something to the black community. And you've got to talk about that. That's damn sure something to talk about.